Fisherman's Post. More fish, more often.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fisherman's Post Saltwater Podcast series. This episode is titled Inshore Rods, Tips, Butts, and Everything in Between. And I'm talking to Captain Jason Dail of Stillwater Rods, and Silverspooncharters. And we're going to be covering inshore rods exclusively. We're going to be talking about length, action, power, materials, pairing reels, and if there's time, we might even get some dialogue in there about maintenance. So a lot to cover. You're going to leave this episode understanding inshore rod components and composition a lot more than before. My name is Gary Hurley of Fisherman's Post, and Fisherman's Post has been serving the saltwater fishing community since 2003. We've been bringing you fishing reports, fishing information, fishing tournaments, fishing schools, and now in this latest and greatest chapter, the Saltwater Podcast series. And it is in this Saltwater Podcast series that we reach out to our captain and guide friends from up and down the North Carolina coast and ask them to share with us their insights and knowledge on how to catch more fish more often, which mostly applies to tonight, but we're covering it in the umbrella. And our goal is not just to get you catching more fish, but just to give you more confidence so that you go out with your family and friends and spend more time on the water more often. And I am joined this episode, just as I am every episode, with Billy Thorpe of Co-Pilot Studio. Hey, Billy.
What's going on, Gary?
Hey, man.
Good to see you, man.
Back at it. We're back at the grind.
Glad you're wearing the black shirt.
I wanted to be formal for Jason.
That's perfect. I'm wearing my black shirt as I always do. So, anyway.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun episode, man. I've always been interested in rod building, so maybe I'll do rod building / podcasting after this. Probably not.
Probably not.
Whatever. Speaking of podcasting, I just want to remind you guys how to watch and how to listen. We are available, this podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Google Podcasts, and newly Amazon Music. So go check us out on there. You can listen on all those platforms or watch us on YouTube if you haven't already. And be sure to subscribe to these channels. One, it really helps us in the algorithm as people subscribe. And you can rate, review, whatever. Leave us a comment. We want to connect with you on there as well. So be sure to hit the little bell on YouTube so you get a notification every Tuesday when we drop a new episode at 7 a.m. on Tuesday mornings. And yeah, it's good.
I think that's an easy request. I mean,
that's
free
easy.
podcast.
Yeah.
All we say is subscribe and share.
Subscribe and share.
And
it's free.
And it's free.
And if you guys want to start paying for it, just leave that in the comments and we'll make that happen.
We'll call
you. Oh, man. Well, and making it possible to be free is Marine Warehouse Center. So we really appreciate those guys here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I'm going to have a message from them and I'm going to be right back.
As you know, it's been a great year for boat sales. However, it's been really tough for customers to find boats in stock. We're the headquarters in Wilmington, North Carolina for Para Customs, Sailfish, Sea Chaser, and Carolina Skiff. Our manufacturers are telling us the high demand for boats is going to affect 2021 inventory as well. So if you're looking to get a boat in the spring, you need to come sign up with us now.
All right, Gary. Good-looking boats, as always. Love that commercial.
Good-looking boats, man. Spring is right around the corner.
I'm in line for mine. In my mind.
Well, I asked Emmett about your free boat.
Oh, yeah? How did that go?
He laughed.
Of course.
He laughed. And then we went back to the conversation we've been having. I think you know that Emmett is big on New Year's resolutions.
Yep.
Several of them. I mean, I had no idea, man. The guy makes like a whole lot of them. The one he was talking to me about this time, his New Year's resolution is to get more organized. He wants to get more organized in personal and professional life.
Good.
And he's off to a great start. He's got a 3-step process for getting more organized.
All right, let's hear it.
Well, he lost it. He lost his list. I mean, he did have it organized, but he lost it. So we're rooting for him.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, Emmett. Good. Hope you find it.
We're rooting for
Hope
you,
you find
Emmett.
your list. Hope you find your list. Until then, I'm going to show you a fish pick. Hopefully I didn't lose it. Here we go. Mike, I'm going to butcher this last name, but Palmieri
That's my guess.
of Washington, North Carolina, with a redfish that fell for a 1/4 ounce jig head with a 4-inch slam shady Z-Man paddle tail. He was fishing in Blunt's Creek. Good looking redfish right there.
Yeah, man, that was someone short that took that photo.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say either that was a little person that took that photo, or he really doesn't want anybody to know where he caught that. Right. So yeah, good looking photo. Thanks for submitting that. And also, if you want to submit a photo, be sure to submit photos and videos on Instagram. They're at fishermans.post. And we'll share those. Really share some videos with us. We have yet to feature a video on here besides Marine Warehouse's video.
That should be our New Year's resolution.
Right? To get more video submissions.
More video submissions.
I don't believe you guys can even catch fish unless
Less
I
than
see
1
in the
minute.
video.
That would be less than 1 minute videos.
Yeah, less than, yeah.
As
yeah,
we're
less
dropping that.
Yeah, we don't need like the 5 minutes.
Ugh.
Oh, here's the hookup. Oh, I fought it for 5 minutes. Anyhow.
Well,
go ahead,
remember,
Gary.
Billy, as I'm talking with Jason, I need you to be focused, and because I'm coming back to you for Billy's
I'm laser
best
focused.
takeaway.
All right, man.
All
It's
right?
gonna be good.
Favorite part of the show. All right, but right now I'm bringing on our guest, and that would be Captain Jason Dail of Stillwater Rods and Silverspooncharters. But tonight we're talking to him in regards to Stillwater Rods. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Billy, for having me. I don't do a whole lot of podcasts, so this is a little bit different for me. I tried to connect with you guys from the space station, but due to lack of internet service, I was brought inside to this lovely background with the floral pattern. So just overlook the background. It's all about content, right? Not appearance.
That's right. That's what I say all the time. And you're off to a fantastic start. I mean,
There's no way anybody in this industry is going to make fun of you.
no, he's killing it.
Just crush it.
Well, Jason, before we talk about Inshore rods from tip to butt and everything in between, or whatever it is we came together with right before the show started, as is tradition on the podcast, I got 2 questions for you. First question, are you ready?
Absolutely ready. So
Jason-
I hope you have 2 hours reserved for me tonight.
We do, man. You keep talking.
We have a lot to talk about.
Question number 1, Jason Dail, and this will qualify whether or not this podcast even continues. Why should we listen to what you have to say about an inshore rod?
So that's a good question. I'm a relatively, a lot of people would probably refer to me as a greenie. I've got about 6-7 years of rod building under my belt. It all started kind of as, I don't know, it just started out as an adventure for me. I was able to secure some rod building equipment from a lady. Unfortunately, her husband passed away, and I was able to get my hands on some really nice equipment at a pretty reasonable price. And one of the guys that I had tournament fished with previously was into rod building, and I wanted to, take a chance and see if I could put some things together and use personally. And it really has evolved from there. And it was a very steep learning curve, and I feel like I've advanced. I've come to understand a lot of the technical components of rod building and what it takes to build a really good fishing rod. I pride myself on my attention to detail, the components I use, and then again, just the sheer aspect of the love of what I'm doing. Anytime I can create a work of art that can be used as a tool for someone, that's very self-rewarding for me. So I enjoy it. I don't see any, I have no plans to stop. I see no shortage of this in my future. So I'm going to be at it for a while. I'm in it for the long haul.
That is a fantastic answer. We will continue with question number 2. And
perfect.
as is tradition, question number 2 is a non-fishing related question. This is, well, here we go. Here's the setup. And this is what you don't want to hear, Jason, who's getting ready to field the question. According to the Urban Dictionary, and I'm playing off of your charter boat name, Silverspooncharters, and my question is playing off of that. So according to the Urban Dictionary, what is a golden fork?
A golden fork. Something used in conjunction with a silver spoon.
You're not even
I don't
close.
know.
And
You stumped me.
this is gonna bring the podcast down. I'm gonna apologize to Billy before I say it. The golden fork, according to the Urban Dictionary, is when you urinate and it goes in two different streams. For whatever reason, it might go in two streams. It goes in two
Oh
streams. So
my
there you go.
gosh.
The old golden fork.
Excellent.
Where's my sound effects?
I know, I caught you off guard. But we're going to bring it down. So now let's get into the material. And so again, we were in our pre-show notes talking about length, action, power, materials, pair and reels. So let's start with length because, you know, that was your first one you put down. What do we need to know? We're looking at Inshore rods. This isn't a commercial for Stillwater. This is an educational experience. We're going to learn all about how to, I guess, select the right rod, find the right rod for you for the right purpose. Is that where we are?
Great question. So, you know, the average consumer is going to walk into a store. They're going to pick up a Star rod, a St. Croix rod, or a Shimano rod. They're going to play with it a little bit in the store. They're going to go home with it, and it's going to perform for them. You know, they all make a great product, and I'm not here to compete with them. But when it comes down to a specialization in a fishing rod, that's where the custom rod builder comes in. Someone who can take into consideration, you know, maybe what length handle an individual would need based on, you know, their arm length, or what kind of reel seat that fits nicely in their hands. Do they have, you know, fat, short fingers? They have, you know, long, skinny fingers and a short hand. You know, those are all items that factor in when considering what to make each individual custom or each individual consumer with a custom spinning rod. So we're talking about inshore stuff. Generally, you know, I personally like a 7 foot to 7'2" rod. That's typically what I fish with inshore for reds, flounder, and trout. You know, we get a few more other inshore species throughout the year, but in general, those three are our primary targets. You know, 6.5 foot to me is acceptable, 6'10", 6'8", even all the way up to 7'6". So there's a lot of variation in between those lengths in rod choice. And I'm not saying either one is right. It's all a matter of personal preference. So that's, again, where the custom rod builder comes in and says, hey, let me fix this to your specifications. And then, you know, we start with that.
Let me ask a follow-up on length then. So if you're the biggest fan of the 7'2", what am I losing and or gaining by going 6.5? What am I losing and or gaining by going 7.5?
So it just all depends. You know, it depends on what weight line you're throwing. It depends on what kind of lures you're throwing. It depends on where you stand on the boat. It depends on where that butt of that rod aligns with your armpit, or, you know, along your arm. You know, if you're standing on the bow of the boat and you're running a trolling motor and you're throwing a topwater plug, then a 7'6" is probably not going to be ideal for you, because that, you know, I generally work a topwater bait with the tip down. So if in that situation, that tip's going to be in the water, where if you back it up to a 6'10", 6'8", 6'10", or a sub 7 foot rod, you eliminate having that tip in the water. Same thing, you know, with the longer rods, they generally have longer butts. So that butt's going to, you know, it's going to inch into your armpit. It's going to make for, you know, more effort in casting. So again, that's why everyone I talk to that's considering custom, you know, it's critical for me to get information on, you know, what size rod they like. Really, that's the opening introduction to the conversation, is what length rod do you like? And then everything else, you know, it's kind of just everything in between.
All right. So unless you have something to add to length, and my notes were talking about action. And so, you know, my vision of this action section is, you know, giving us a better understanding of the choices that are out there, whether we're going custom or whether we're going factory. Help us all understand the choices and what, you know, and what we get from certain choices.
Sure. So I wish I had some charts to show you guys, but I'll try to explain it in a non-chart form. So the action of the rod is generally reserved to the tip third of the rod. So that's what's going to give you your action. You usually have extra fast action, which means it has a really soft, light tip. Extra fast is prone to breakage if it's not fished correctly. So extra fast, then you get moderate action, and then you get a slower action. And the faster action, extra fast action, just means that the tip of the rod is doing majority of the work. Fast action is generally about the top quarter of the rod. That's typically what I prefer for soft plastics or for hard baits like miradines and that sort of thing. Medium light to fast action on the tip. Moderate action, you get more bend down in the midsection of the rod, and then slow action, you get pretty much all the way down the spine of the rod, down closer to the handles, to the foregrips. So just to talk about action again, the faster the action, the more flexibility you have at the rod tip. It's going to be a smaller diameter tip the faster action you go. So as you go from extra fast to mod fast to moderate to slower action, the diameter of that tip's going to increase, and you're going to have more flexibility in that rod from the tip down to about halfway of that rod blank. Extra fast is generally reserved for top water baits, subsurface baits, and then your fast action pretty much could be for anything. That's just the best all-around rod in my opinion, something that's got a faster action to it. So your soft plastics, again, your miradine baits, mirror lures, it's just easier to load, easier hook set, and it just it makes for more effortless fishing. When you tie the action into the rod to the specific lure that you're fishing, it makes it more efficient, both from an energy standpoint and also an efficiency standpoint, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. How about best application for moderate, best application for slow?
So for moderate action, this could be things like crankbaits or for spinning baits. Again, the fast action, that's pretty much universal for just about anything. And then the extra fast action is going to be more for like top water baits, drop shot for bass guys. Extra fast is usually, that's not a common request for rods. That's someone who says, hey, look, I'm throwing a mirror lure sheep up. I want a 610 extra fast action, something that I could, have the bait work itself. So really, once I know who those guys are who request that, I'm happy to build for them because I know that what they want, and they're gonna take care of the rods that are provided to them.
Is there an action that qualifies for further casting just in general, or it's all relative to what you're casting?
Again, that medium light fast, medium fast, all those, again, you're going to have better load tip with the fast action than you would if you were fishing something with a slower action. More distance with the fast action rod blank. Moderate fast, extra fast. That's going to give you the most trajectory with that lure that you can get.
All right, so I'm guessing related to action is the power of the rod. Give me an education on how rods differ in regards to power.
So sure, again, we're working, so everything in between. We're working from the tip to the butt. So you move from your action to your power. The power is generally reserved to about halfway that rod length down to the butt. And that's where you're actually gaining the power to fight the fish. So you go from light power, medium light, medium heavy, extra heavy, and so on. So for inshore, most all the anglers that fish inshore are either between medium light and medium heavy. And again, that's just talking about the power of the blank. You're still using the action of the blank, but when you're fighting a fish, that power is going to determine what kind of pressure you can put on that fish to land it. So, again, more aggressive more aggressive approach as you get into that medium heavy to heavy category versus the medium light spectrum of it.
And so I guess this is a good time to move into materials, because it seems like there's a lot to talk about here, from tip to guide to reel seat. I mean, et cetera. So your vision for telling me about materials, again, I love the direction this is going in, where I am getting an education in what makes one rod different from another. And then ultimately we'll bring it, we are going to still bring it to the custom rod element, but tell me about the materials, like the choices that are out there, or what people need to pay attention to no matter what rod they're buying.
Sure. Another great question. So material, the industry's come a long way from the 70s and 80s, when majority of the products that were purchased were limited to just fiberglass. Today you've got high modulus graphite blanks. Everybody wants to have something lighter, stronger. With the fiberglass rods, those are very durable rods. You can beat the broadside of a barn with those and generally not break them, which is kind of the opposite of the high modulus stuff. They're a bit more sensitive, but at the same time, as you move up in the spectrum of graphite, you gain a lot more sensitivity in that rod. So there's a weight loss as you move from fiberglass to high modulus graphite that is considerably noticeable. Those are really the two media that I work with. There's a lot of different hybrids in between, but again, if I know someone's going to be fishing offshore, they want some trolling rods, more than likely those are going to be your fiberglass blended hybrid rods. And then for the guys that fish inshore, those are going to be comprised mostly of your Bushido blanks, your Rain Shadow blanks, your North Fork blanks, and so on. But that's, to talk about it in detail and get really technical, I don't want to lose anybody. So I'll just limit it to the fiberglass, the intermediate modulus and high modulus graphite blanks.
And those graphite blanks are giving me both less weight and more sensitivity. And then to oversimplify, and then the other oversimplification is on the negative side, it just might not be as sturdy as some of the other rods.
Yeah, not so much that it's not as sturdy, it's just a little bit more delicate. It just requires people to take, a little bit better care of their equipment. Maybe not shove it in with 5 or 10 other rods in the back of a pickup truck and, drive it down the highway. You just want to be a little bit more careful with those. They're still durable. I've got rods that, I'm still using some of the first few rods that I ever built, and they were made on North Fork high modulus blanks, and I'm still using those. They work phenomenal.
All right. So what's the next component we're going to talk about? We got blank covered. What are the other elements we need to look at?
Yeah. So, we could talk about handle material. We could talk about grips. We could talk about guides. The guide spectrum is anywhere under the rainbow. Same with the handle material. I personally picked up a technique of using these fiberglass sleeves over top of these polyurethane foam inner cores, and it allows me the flexibility to customize rods even more by painting them and putting a personal design and personal touch on them. These are 6-pound foam core blanks, so they're pretty durable. It takes a lot to compress these and put any type of indention in them. Majority of the ones that I've got, I actually can't think of one that I've got where I've actually damaged this foam material. These are extremely lightweight, just as much as a cork handle would be. I build a lot of carbon fiber as well. So, I always put a little foregrip on it nub in case somebody wants to hold the reel like this instead of, holding it down at the reel seat. So just, again, the possibilities are endless with this. This is a carbon fiber reel seat and handle, carbon fiber reel seat, carbon fiber handle. These are all components that are made by American Tackle Company, and I use these quite a bit. Super lightweight reel, rod and reel setup. So with a 2000 series reel in this, or 2500 series reel, this whole setup weighs less than 10 ounces. So the rod itself is about 3.75 ounce to 4 ounce with the components that are on it now. Again, super lightweight. For me, I might cast 1,000 times a day, and so to eliminate a lot of strain and stress on my arm and shoulders, I want something that's super lightweight, both in the rod and the reel itself. So I try to scale back on overbuilding. I don't need a whole lot of decorative wraps on the rod. I just want something that's going to function. It's going to be aesthetically pleasing, and it's going to be light enough that I can cast it all day without feeling fatigued. And so that's really what I try to build for everyone. Again, just factoring in what their personal needs are and how the rods really are kind of matched to them. Going back again to the butt length, that seems to be the biggest component of what guys like in rods. So you can have any size handle on the rear, but unless it fishes like you want it to fish, it's probably going to go in the closet or go back on the shelf, and you're gonna divert to another rod as your go-to. So I want to try to provide a product to everyone that's going to be their go-to rod.
All right. So I am not a tackle nerd, tackle geek at all. And and when I'm sitting here asking questions, I just assume there's a lot of people like me. So with what you just shared, like on the two different butts that you showed me, is the difference that the latter one was just lighter and less aesthetic, and the other one, the first one, the green one, was just more aesthetic, but you might compromise a little bit of weight? And then my follow-up question is, because I'm thinking some people will go in and buy a rod, in the store, like you said, and maybe haven't even given that much thought about what do I need to be thinking about with the length of a butt when I'm buying a rod? Like, why have a longer, why have a shorter? What do you got for me there?
Yeah, so there's not a whole lot of difference between the foam and the carbon fiber. I mean, if I were to put these two butts on the scale, they're going to be within probably hundredths of an ounce of one another. Both are very durable. They both have a non-skid finish. It's just one is completely constructed. So this one is completely constructed in-house. So I make everything from the foam filling. It's got a fiberglass sleeve on it, but the polyurethane foam's all made in-house. It's all milled down to a specific shape profile, and the desired length is all predetermined and all set in house. And then you get the custom paint color on it. So this just customizes a little bit more. It may be just a hair heavier than this, but it's not going to be by much. This is a new product by American Tackle Company. They just came out with that last year. Same way with the reel seat. So this is a compressed carbon reel seat, super light, and then just the corresponding trim that goes at the forefront of that. So with the reel lock seat, it just gives it gives it a really clean appearance and very ergonomic. The third part of it, I have a mix of all these media in my arsenal: cork, carbon fiber, the hybrid foam reel seats, the fiberglass handles. I use them all for a different application. I even construct wood handle out of cypress and cedar. That they all have a different application. So it really just depends on what a consumer wants as far as how I match up that handle material, the reel seat, and then the components of the guides.
Why does a longer butt work better for some people and a shorter butt work better for others?
So, I mean, you've got guys out there with long arms, with short arms, again, with big fat hands, shorter, smaller hands. Again, it all depends on that individual's personal preference. I see guys that come in that fish out of kayaks a lot. And generally for kayak fishing, you're going to want a shorter butt because it's difficult to cast from a kayak, or so I've been told, and work a rod or work a lure with that butt under your armpit or digging into your side. So I've had quite a bit of feedback from kayak fishermen, and majority of all of them, they seem to always prefer a shorter butt. Same thing with guides that want, a topwater rod, but guys who fish popping corks, they may want a longer butt, maybe an 8-foot rod with a little bit longer butt. So it really depends on the application of what you're going after, how you're going to fish it, what your style of fishing is, and then kind of where you're fishing from. Are you fishing from a kayak? You fishing from a bank? You fishing from a boat? What? It's just it's hard to know until someone approaches you and said, "Hey, this is me. Match something up to my body profile. Match something up to my style of fishing."
No, I follow that explanation. Everything makes sense. I think maybe last on our materials, and then we're going to move to pairing rods and reels together. But last on our materials, maybe talk about guides.
Sure. So I build a lot. Again, I use either a lot of American Tackle products. They make tie forge guides, really corrosion resistant. This is one of their tie forge guides. I don't know if you can see it. This is a spinning guide. I use a lot of their components. Fuji, my goodness, how long have they been around? Forever. They make a great product. Really, for anyone who doesn't know, any type of Duralite or Nanolite ceramic ring is going to work for them. Guys that have these, that want a titanium Torzite guides. I know that doesn't mean anything to you, but that's kind of like the top of the top of guide material. So you order titanium frame guide with a Torzite insert. You're looking at probably $125 for a set of guides just for a 7-foot spinning rod. So the Duralite, the Nanolite guides, those are all very durable ceramics that are used for the inserts of the guides. I use those quite a bit. On occasion, I'll use silica carbide or Torzite guides for people who just want to have that, based on personal preference. I try to, there's a thing called static testing where you load the blank up and you what they call static test the rod. So you're determining where the position of those guides are based on a static test. And that static, after building hundreds and hundreds of rods, I've come to know where the guides need to be positioned to maximize the efficiency of that line and that lure. For spinning guides, I like to use smaller guides instead of the traditional real heavy, beefy, very oversized guides that are used. You see some of these spinning rods and they've got a size 30 guide on them, and that's really unnecessary because the larger the guide, the more friction you're putting on that line as it's coming off the rod. So you've got more friction in each of those rings. So when you compress that and you go to a smaller diameter, you've got less friction in those guides, and so the line technically is going to come off faster and smoother, and is going to lay better as that lure and line come off that rod. Again, weight and efficiency and effectiveness of those rods kind of what drive me to build the custom rods that I do. It's not that I try to make the best product for my customers that I can make, and that's based on my own personal preference and what I've learned through the development of the technology that's available. So as the rod blanks, as they become more progressive, as the guides become more progressive, I'm trying to stay with that and progress along with those companies and with that development and provide a product to the consumer that reflects that.
All right. And this has all been good. I'm definitely know more about rods already, but now
No,
I think
you don't.
I do. I've been paying attention. I could do Gary's best takeaway at the end if I had to. Hey, so again, but what I'm really appreciating is you giving us information that we use whether we're a custom rod guy or not. And I think that applies to our next conversation about pairing rods and reels together. I mean, anyone who's buying, whether it's custom or factory, faces that question. Advise us, how do we go about the best pairing process?
Sure. So someone who wanted to make the best of a rod setup shouldn't go into a store and pick up a 6.5 foot or 6 foot rod and put a 8,000 series reel on it. That's just impractical. So you want to match the reel to the rod. So for a 6.5 foot rod, if you're going to put 10-pound braid on it, you could get away with 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 series reel. As you get up in the 6.5 to 7 foot range, you'd want to step it up to maybe a 2,500 or 3,000. 7.6, you could put a 3,000, 4,000 on it, etc. So again, it depends on your application. If it's something that you're going to be fishing all day, generally a 7 foot medium light or medium action rod with a 2,500 or 3,000 series reel on it is perfect. So it gives you the right balance. It gives you enough line capacity that you could catch whatever swims inside. It's not overkill. It's not underkill. So, to me, that 2,000 range to 4,000 series range with any of the reel models, Shimano Pin, Dail, Fluger, Abu Garcia, it doesn't matter. That seems to be the best combination for inshore fishing, whether it be for drum, trout, flounder, whatever. So, guys who want to maximize the drag efficiency, who want to maximize the line efficiency. If you had a 7 foot medium rod and you were dock fishing and you had a 4,000 series reel on it with 60-pound braid, that's a perfect setup. So I wouldn't change that. So really, again, the rod and reel combination, again, depends on your application and really what you're targeting with that actual combination of rod and reel.
All right, I have a follow-up. So as far as finding the right reel balance, I mean, is that me putting a reel on the rod and then balancing it on my finger and seeing if I can just get it to balance? I mean, everyone has done some version of that at some point in their fishing career. What do you mean by find the right balance? Like, what does that mean other than balancing it on your finger in the store?
Yeah, and I see a lot of guys do that, and I don't pay that much mind. When I say balance, I mean you don't want to put a reel that's so heavy on any particular rod that all you feel is the weight of that rod between your hand and your elbow. You want to be able to feel some action on that rod at the tip. When you put a tip on it, or when you put a lure on the tip, it's going to change that action slightly, but not significantly enough that you're going to notice it. If you match that rod up with, if you go to a store and you buy kind of a middle of the road type of rod and you put a middle of the road reel on it, you're right in that curve. If you go and you buy and put a big clunky chunky heavy reel on a super light rod, then you're going to feel it again down at the base of the rod in the handle material. And you're not going to, if you were live bait fishing or if you were dragging soft plastic across the bottom with that particular setup, you're not going to feel the action of that rod and the action of that bait like you would if you had paired it, with something that's more applicable, with a 2500. So it all comes down to, again, putting the appropriate line of braid on it, having the right size reel on the rod, and then having the right size reel, line, and lure combination on that particular rod. So the best thing to do is just grab stuff and start fishing with it. See what works best for you. If it doesn't, change things up a little bit. But I can tell you from my personal experience, generally anything that's between 6'8" and 7'6", any 2000 to 4000 series reel is gonna be perfect for that rod selection.
All right, we are running out of time, but I don't want to completely skip rod maintenance, so I'm going to give you a small window to help us out with rod maintenance. I mean, for me, I just get off the boat with a captain such as yourself, and I don't worry about it, or I tell my kids rinse off the rods before we put them in the garage. But I'm guessing you got something more complicated.
No, not too much. So again, the guides have come a long way. Painted guides, stainless guides, brush chrome guides. They're all pretty durable. Some manufacturers now are producing some guides that are more susceptible to corrosion than others, but majority of Fuji's guides and American Tackle's guides, the Tyforge guides that I use, they're relatively corrosion resistant. I will tell you this, just kind of sneak this in there. So I've been with a few guys and they've casted and they'll be caught on something and their line will snap. And they'll say, well, I just got cut off on an oyster, or that piling broke me off. That not necessarily may be the case, and maybe the fact that you have some chipped or cracked ceramic in your guide. So the best way to determine if you've got a guide that's bad is to grab a Q-tip and just run it around the inside of the guide. And if it grabs on any part of that ceramic, that's going to mean that ceramic ring is going to be chipped or it's going to be cracked. And that's the culprit of the fraying that you're experiencing on your line. So just one quick way to determine if you've got a guide that's gone bad, or if it truly was, you being cut off on an oyster or a piling. But I spray my stuff off on occasion with water. I don't wipe it down with anything, no WD-40. The biggest thing I would recommend is learn how to use that rod and don't put the power in the top quarter or top third of that blank. That's what they call high sticking. So when you bend the tip of that rod at an unnatural angle and you start to bring the tip of that rod back to the boat or down towards the water, that's where you experience failure in a rod. And it's not a manufacturer's defect. It's in the way you have handled that rod. It's high modulus graphite is not meant to be drawn back 90 degrees to the angle of that rod itself. So if I can give anyone a word of advice and a takeaway from any of this, is to don't high stick a rod, because if you do, the chances are very likely, that you're going to cause that rod to have failure. I see it all the time. Guys will be fighting a fish and it'll be a good sized fish and they'll try to deadlift the fish into the boat. And when they do, they bring the rod straight up. They point the handle towards the sun, just like this. So they point the rod up towards the sun, and then what's going on with the tip of that rod? The tip of that rod's pointed back down at the water, or in the bow of the boat, or at the floor of the boat, and it's going to cause that rod to break. I've seen it more and more than I care to admit, but that will cause rod failure more than anything else. So that's how you maintain a rod, is don't high stick it. There's really not much to maintenance. Yeah, you spray them off if you want to. Mine get it on occasion, but I put them away.
Hey, we're at the end of your episode. Someone that's heard you talk wants to continue the conversation with you, explore more of the possibilities of custom rods. What do they do?
Yeah, they can email me. I'm on Facebook quite a bit. I'm on Instagram. So it's stillwaterrods@gmail.com. Feel free to email me. I've also got a website that's Silverspooncharters. I'm working on developing a website for the rod building. Again, like I mentioned, when I started this, I didn't anticipate it growing and having the interest that I have now. And I feel very blessed and very fortunate for that. So the website is in the works for that. It will be coming online pretty soon. So I'm going to have components. I'm going to have complete build prices, maybe even some production rods on there. So I got a lot of things going on right now. And not to say what I'm doing is not working, but again, it's I've come to a fork in the road, and it's either continue on the direction I'm going with me being a one-man show, or try to do a little bit more. So decision's tough, but the website is coming online pretty soon.
Jason, thank you so much for talking with us. I'm sincere when I say I am smarter at the end of this conversation than I was at the beginning. That is no jest. That is straight up. I appreciate it, man.
Well, I appreciate it. No, thank you. Thanks for having me, Gary. And Billy, thank you for everything you do. And just conversing with you guys in the past is always a pleasure. And we'll get together on the water soon.
We will.
Awesome, man. What a show. What a good show.
Lots of info.
Dude, there are so many takeaways. I'm like, how am I going to pick one? But I guess I didn't really think about matching up arm length versus butt length versus all that stuff. Because, I've always fished with rods. I don't fish with other people's gear as much as Gary Hurley does. But I have fished with other people's stuff. And I'm like, man, this is just super uncomfortable. But I never really figured out why, because I haven't dove into that subject that much. But now I'm going to pay attention to that when I'm choosing stuff at the store or whatever. When he said $125 for those guides, I'm like, oh man, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
You can spend real money for top.
I think I've spent $30 on a Dail rod. The last one.
Shame on you.
I know I shouldn't even say that on there, but anyhow, oh man, so such a good episode, dude. Really, tons of information about rod building. So hopefully people will go hook up with Jason and get him working until Christmas.
Yeah, and just be smarter when you're making rod choices. I mean, that was my goal. I knew that he, was going to share good information. I hope he gets some calls, and I also hope he help people out who just aren't in a custom frame of mind. I hope they're still just thinking, all right, I now know more when I go in.
Yeah, that's good, man. Well, I don't know anything else, Gary, about rods. But, never mind. Forget it. I had this cool line I was going to end with. Anyway, remember to go check out Marine Warehouse Center. They're making this all possible. Gary, once again, thanks a lot for a great episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with one of your fishing friends if you've enjoyed this episode. And go check out Jason Dail on Facebook or the website. It'll be in the show notes as well. So, or his email will be in the show notes and his guide website. So go check him out. Cool, Gary.
Thanks everyone for spending the time with us.
Fisherman's